Welcome back to Weapons of Meme Destruction. Usually, this is my little time to have a little catch up or grind my gears on something, but we got something very serious to talk about tonight. A friend of the podcast has been arrested on a live stream. And Dane, I pitch it over to you.
Yes, Maj Touré of Black Guns Matter, friend of the podcast. We've gone to at least one of his solutionary summits before. He has been nothing but gracious to us. We have, pictures with him. Just really great guy all the way around.
Nothing but the utmost respect.
So apparently he was on a live stream with another liberty-oriented group. You've heard me say the name Tom Wood several times. He has a private members-only, group page, and Maj was presenting to the group while walking around North Philly, answering questions from his phone or whatever he was recording on. And while he was in the middle of that, not doing anything wrong to anybody, he was arrested by, I don't know, Philadelphia police or whoever. And this was within the last couple of days. We're recording this episode on Friday, June 23rd, 2023. So it was within the last 24 to 48 hours that this happened. But, like I said, we will put information down in the show notes and the comments for how you can support. But I'll just tell for the audio only listeners now, Maj, who is the founder and moving force behind his group called Black Guns Matter, where he teaches people how to use guns for self-defense, use them responsibly, arm themselves, keep themselves safe, all of that kind of stuff. That is what his group typically does. And if you give to his Give, Send, Go campaign, that's what that money usually goes toward. Now, maybe he'll set up a different Give, Send, Go specifically for his defense against the charges, whatever they may be against him, trumped up as they are. But in the meantime, since he hasn't had time to set that up yet, please go to www.givesendgo.com/solutionary. That's SOLUTIONARY. Give $1, give $5, give $10. Anything you would have given to this podcast for this episode, give over there to Maj at Give, Send, Go, so that he can have a little bit more gunpowder, pun intended,
so to speak,
in his criminal defense to get these charges behind him, because they are bullshit. This is Philadelphia, where he was at, one of the gun control capitals of the world. And despite Maj personally being licensed and fully legal to carry, even in a crazy blue place like that, they still came for him.
Well, because it's a utopia over there too, right? There's no crime or anything like that.
Yeah, of course. There's no reason for him to defend himself in that place, because
it's not like there's
all the criminals listen to the gun control law on the books around there.
Well, and he also says that all gun control laws are racist, right? But
as they are.
As they are. But also, it's just so weird that there's no nickname for Philadelphia to go along with a kill ratio, like, I don't know, something off the top of my head, Philadelphia or anything like that.
Yeah. That's totally made up off the top of Dave's head. So, hashtag free Maj. Like I said, go to his Give, Send, Go campaign. Give $1, give $5, give whatever you can. Help him out so that he can get good, solid criminal defense attorneys to get him out of this situation that he has no business being in. Again, great stand-up guy, just all about working in his communities to make them safer and more responsible with firearms. So there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to arrest this guy. And yet the state does what it does. So fuck them, support Maj, go to his Give, Send, Go and help him out.
And the first fuck of the night goes to Dane.
Yeah.
If you were over-undering it, you might have just got a jackpot going on over there. So, all right, in order to lighten the mood a little bit after that sultry or somber, not sultry, somber.
David sometimes mix up his S words.
There's a lot of them. I got to tell you, there's a lot of words that start with S, so pardon me. But that somber intro, Dane, meme of the week, and I'm going to enunciate this so everybody gets it on the first try. Titan, submarines, actual news.
It's good that you put the comma in there.
I have to say
that really helps with comprehension.
I have to say the comma. I understood that on the pre-roll. All right. Culture Corner. Elon won't let cis persist. Love rhyming in the...
David.
Stick around for more.
His creative writing really comes out in this segment of the show.
Super doopy. All right. An accounting error loses more taxpayers' money. And you'll never guess where it went. And it's a song as old as time, is it not?
It is.
It's like almost 200. How long have we been in a country? 200
A long
some odd
time.
years? 200 some odd years? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
About that long. Epstein.
Almost 250.
Or no, that was the Epstein. And then to the main. All right, let's see if I can get this one done. Who's the real master debater? RFK or Peter Hotez? And Joey Rogues and friends are willing to pay.
That's right. So that being said, David, we going to tell the fine folks about what all these topics are about and stuff within the episode.
I think somebody forgot the order of magnitude of which this particular.
You know, I always struggled with PEMDAS.
PEMDAS?
PEMDAS.
What's PEMDAS?
Remember the order of operations in math in like grade school? Parentheses,
God
exponents.
damn it! Why are you going to do that to me?
Something, whatever.
Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Yeah. Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It is.
Listen, if there's one thing I learned in math, it's that. And that was the only thing. So actually, now that we've got the PEMDAS.
Back to our own PEMDAS, David. What are we doing?
You were ready to jump in, Dane? Don't look down.
I think we should jump in. Welcome to Weapons and Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 151, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/151. You can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons and Meme Destruction, and you can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. And as we reminded you last week from the week before that we forgot to remind you, but now we're going to remind you again.
Good Lord.
Text that number, which is 610-596-WMDP or 610-596-9637.
If I can pause you right there.
Go ahead.
We should really work on the timing of that, because if you put WMDP, sounds a little suggestive.
So I need to be more fluid. WMDP.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, don't do the DP part. Do it all together.
Or
WMDP.
do it, but keep it at the sanctity of your home.
610-596-9637 to join our automated text service that will keep you in touch with the show. It'll give you discount codes to buy stuff at the merch store. It will keep you up to date on any live events that we do. We haven't done any yet, so don't feel left out. But in the future, it will also give you up-to-date real-time notifications for when our episodes drop on whatever your favorite platform is, whether it's audio or visual or anything else like that. It's just a great way to stay. It's just a great way to stay in shape.
Stay in shape.
Text that show.
Stage 4 terminal cancer. It's eating away at my heart, lungs, and bones, but it's a great way to stay in shape.
So anyway, yes, text that number, join the automated text list. You can always opt out if we ever get too annoying, but I promise you it'll just be more entertainment than anything. And you'll be grateful that you did.
We hope.
So
we always undersell, over deliver.
Yeah.
So just check it out.
Yeah.
Check it out.
So with that being said, jumping into the meme segment of episode 151, we are talking about the story that every single person seemingly on the face of the planet is talking about, or at least in Western media, which is I
had a little sidebar.
Yeah.
151. That should stand out in your mind. You remember snowshoes? A little childhood memory. I want to go down. Listen, you got to give me a little.
The
space
people
here.
want memory lane. I mean, memory lane for us. They don't.
Yeah,
we barely remember it ourselves.
So it's like
make sure it's not like 20 minutes.
No, it's not 20 minutes. It's just
go
a
for
fun little thing. Like, we decided that we were going to go toe to toe with my father.
Big mistake.
With Bacardi 150, or not, it was Schnapps 151. It was like a 151 Schnapps.
It was Schnapps and Jack.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
what the fuck were we thinking?
What kind of sociopath puts together peppermint Schnapps and Jack Daniels?
Oh, anyway, so there was
the reason why it's snowshoes. Tell the good people.
So you don't taste really the Jack, but so put it this way. as a real man, we don't care to not share our feelings. We all ended up crying that night. Dad thought he was going to be smart and throw both of us into the pool to cool us down. He fell into it, had to be plucked out of it. So I plucked Dad out of the pool, and Dane was, what would you say? You were watering the bushes? You were giving nutrients to the bushes over there while I was doing that? So it was a fun night. Just a little memory burned into our skulls that we'll never forget. And
well, even David
never drink
is not
schnapps
telling you, but the reason why it's called snowshoes is apparently my uncle, his father, was a big snowboarding guy, and when they would go on their snowboard trips, they're at the top of the mountain, it's cold as hell. You would drink, apparently, if you're a psychopath, peppermint schnapps and
because
Jack Daniels.
Because snowboarding's so easy, right? Nobody ever breaks their fucking face doing it, right?
And it, it'd warm you up, and you'd have a great time. And
fun time. It's a great way to stay in shape.
And where the shoe part came from, I'm not really sure. Don't think it matters. The point is that we were in no position to be drinking one of those shots.
If you want to have a regrettable night,
and that was a bad night.
Have a couple of snowshoes.
I remember falling asleep to the movie Blow, while throwing up in a big kitchen pan. And after almost dying of alcohol poisoning, you know what my gracious uncle had the unmitigated gall to do when he came out of his room in the morning? Get pissed off at me that I didn't have enough wherewithal when I was 18 sheets to the wind.
I got you the pan.
To not pull the trash can over by me to throw up in all night, and then I used one of his pans.
His best pots.
Because it's impossible to wash a pan, I guess. I guess that pan had to be thrown away after that night. I don't know. But.
Welcome into a little iota of why I'm so jacked up over here. So I've got some plausible deniability. But anyway, I'm sorry. I couldn't let that one go. Yeah, let you in a little bit to a little history of the WD podcast. Anyway, Dane.
That's right. We got a gang of those kind of stories.
Stick around.
Anyway, with that being said, back to what we're here to really talk about. The meme of the week is a story that's on everybody's mind inexplicably, but we'll get to that here in a second, is the one billionaire and four of his $250,000 paying friends getting into the Titan submersible, thinking they're going to go down and check out the Titanic wreckage themselves, and that ending just about the way you would expect that. I think it was yesterday, so Thursday, June 22nd, they found some of the pieces of the submersible exploded. So they had a bad time. Good news is they probably didn't suffer a whole lot, which is the best you could hope for in any situation like that. That went exactly how you would expect. But one tiny little section of that whole story, which serves as the impetus for today's meme segment, is some commentary surfaced from the CEO, the billionaire, where he said something to the effect of he did not want to hire old white guys, more than 50 years old that had nautical and submarine experience to work at his company, OceanGate, because they're just not very, I think the word was imaginative or whatever. And young people who he wanted to inspire wouldn't be inspired by 50-year-old white guys. Experience notwithstanding, apparently it's acceptable in today's society to discriminate based on age, gender, and ethnicity if that age, gender, and ethnicity happens to be old, white, and male. But
what was that revolution in China called?
He ended up having a bad time.
What was that revolution in China called?
The Cultural Revolution.
Yeah, okay. So what happened? Like, if you ever refuted the current norms with the past, they'd call you a dunce and make you feel like an idiot and throw you out and castigate you and never accept you again.
They basically deputized college students and younger to go around completely remaking Chinese culture and society.
You know what college students and students in general and young people and really hip and with it, you know what they don't have a lot of?
Life experience.
Period. Like United just came out and said their most, I think it was United Airlines, correct me if I'm wrong, nameless faceless guy, but they came out and they said their primary objective or their ultimate objective of their new hirings is diversity. Now, in case you don't know what United is, it's an airline company. And I don't know if you know about airlines, but I would rather you hire the guy that can make the plane take off and land where it's supposed to be, rather than whether or not his skin color matches a palette on Home Depot. His or her, or its, or they, or whatever you want me to freaking say.
Regardless of their immutable characteristics, to channel our inner MLK Jr. is, judge people on the content of their character and on the color of their skin. Well, in a similar vein, if you're going to hire somebody for a job, or I don't know, you're a billionaire taking on a highly dangerous, personal mission, you might want to hire people based on, if not the content of their character, at least the level of their expertise and skills to pull off whatever difficult thing it is you want them to do, rather than whether they meet some of these characteristics that they just happen to be born with.
And you know what? It's funny. It's almost backhandedly racist, because you're not saying
it's not backhand. It's straight front door racist.
Exactly. Well, they
it's
just don't,
acceptable.
They're not aware of what they're saying at the current moment. There's we're going to hire diversely. You're not. What you should have said is, we're going to hire the best candidate for the job.
Period.
Not diversity, because you're saying, well, the best candidate for the job was that old white guy. But we're going to hire this hip, new, black transgender person because that's diverse. Well, if they don't know how to fucking drive a submarine, you're kind of hoofed. Yeah. Or if they don't know how to land a plane, that's a big thing in the airline industry. So I don't know.
Now, with this whole story, if you even bring up this aspect, then you're some kind of far-right crazy person, because don't you know, you big dumb idiot, him saying that had nothing to do with the mission actually failing. It's just, a funny little quip that he made. And it doesn't really mean anything, because the only reason he made the quip, and again, this whole line of argument I'm giving you is from the leftist mouth breathers all over Twitter that are poo-pooing the fact that this statement means anything relative to this tragedy, is the only reason he said it was because he wanted to justify ignoring people with expertise that were sounding the warning bells on his sort of, duct tape and gorilla glue operation he was running over there at Ocean Gate. And to that I say, even if we concede that argument in its totality, that he didn't honestly believe, he didn't honestly hold the sentiment that I'm not going to hire, old white guys, the point is, he can say that publicly, and even if it achieves the objective that you're saying is it helps paper over his other malfeasance, the fact that he can say that publicly, knowing that he's either A, nobody's going to care that he said it, or B, he's going to be applauded for it, tells you just about all you need to know about the direction that the, woke sort of mob, however amorphous that group is, the direction they're pushing society. And it's pushing towards the same society that every totalitarian movement in history has, where it singles out one group, and that group is allowed to be blamed for everything, and that group is somehow probably subhuman in one or more senses, and it's okay to castigate and push them out of polite society. It's okay to say, I'm not going to hire you because you have these characteristics, but if the roles were reversed and he said, I'm not going to hire, not old white guys, then, they would be he would probably be alive, because the company would have gone out of business. It would have been canceled. So isn't it funny how that works? How that same group of people who probably cheered and applauded him for that statement when he made it, whatever, a couple years ago or whatever, are the same group of people that today are saying, good, I'm glad he died. That's one less billionaire on the earth. This is the concept of being a useful idiot. And this is for I know you're not supposed to speak ill of the dead or whatever, but for the people that espouse that type of cult of envy ideology, just remember, they might be your friend today when you're espousing the ideology, but tomorrow you're going to be the first one that they take glee in you dying. So we're not taking that glee. It's a tragedy that 5 lives were lost, regardless of how much money they had or how irresponsible the mission was. But, we're not exactly the core constituency that anybody's trying to appeal to.
At least there was one winner in this whole scenario, and that's the media. Thank God there was this story that happened this week in a week of just nothing. Nothing was transpiring. Nothing like, Hunter Biden being indicted, or maybe the president maybe being compromised by another foreign nation. Maybe we inch closer to nuclear holocaust. Maybe we might be on the precipice of World War III. At least none of those things happened this week.
Maybe the president's son gets off with a slap on the wrist for something that Wesley Snipes went to jail for 3 years for.
At least.
Yeah.
At least. But,
and that kind of gets into the meme that Nameless Faceless Guy is going to put up now. This Matrix meme all the time is, yes, we've broken the cardinal sin of independent media, and we have become essential slaves to the algorithm by talking about a story that shouldn't really even broach the second page, let alone the headline, because, we need the interest and all of that kind of stuff. But, all of these other stories that David's talking about, brink of World War III, the Hunter Biden story, really impactful, important things that gone on. The BlackRock employee that admitted to another undercover James O'Keefe story about how they can buy senators for $10,000, et cetera, et cetera. All of those stories have been pushed back to the 10th page by this submersible story. So, even though we dedicated a segment to it, we're also still using it to call out that other meme that exists, is that if anything, the mainstream media is nothing but a distraction from the things that are really important.
And this is exhibit number 5726B of them getting out in front of something, making you care about something that absolutely it's a tragedy. Again, how many people live in the world?
Roughly 8 billion.
Okay, so
maybe a little less.
If the whole planet gets nuked, 8 billion people die. Okay. How many people live in the United States?
330-ish million.
Okay, so that's 330-ish million that might be being led by somebody that's compromised.
Yeah. It's kind of a rather important detail.
I feel, and then 5 people died on one submersible. So by order of magnitude, if you just put the numbers, they're not even comparable. But, we're just two ponyaks on a piece of shit podcast. What we know about order of magnitude or operation or the
exactly. Don't listen to us. No. Listen to Rachel Maddow.
No, she'll let you know. It stops with you. Okay.
So with that being said, we are on to the Culture Corner segment, where we are talking about Elon's banning of, not banning of the word entirely, but banning its abusive use that borders on harassment, the term cisgender, which for those of you who don't know what that means, good for you. Because there are some topics that are just a complete waste of your time, but that's what we're here to do, is wade through all of that sewage and bring you kind of the little nuggets of important details. And I use that word intentionally. Nuggets, sewage. You see what I did there?
Poop.
That was good. I did that.
It wasn't bad. Wasn't bad.
So anyway, Elon had a tweet earlier this week where he said that he was going to use, or he was going to classify excessive and repetitive use of the term cisgender on Twitter as a slur. And for those of you, again, who don't know what cisgender is, it means that you, as an adult, self-identify with the sex that you were given at, or with the gender that you were given at birth. So if you had 2 X chromosomes and you were given the gender of female at birth, and you become an adult and you say, I'm a female, you're cisgendered. Same thing for males, XY chromosome at birth.
Figure that out for us. It's not like we had millions of years of biology before they came along to figure out heterosexuality for us.
Now, on the heels of Elon saying that cisgender could be a slur, and let's just be clear, right? It is absolutely a slur, and here's why. Twofold.
What has it ever been used positively?
We'll get into why it's a nothing term that doesn't mean anything anyway. So the only reason it could be used is for slur purposes. And second of all, the only people who use it sarcastically are people that are using it as a slur, right? The Rainbow Mafia will call you a cisgender, and then a whole bunch of other pejoratives right after it, right? To intentionally slur you, to say that, your opinion is
You're less
worth
than.
less. You're not entitled to an opinion on topic X, Y, or Z, whatever
God
the
forbid
case
if we
may
ever
be.
made them feel less than.
Yeah,
Well, holy shit.
You're just cis scum, that kind of thing. So yeah, the people that use the term unironically always use it insultingly, or as, to be harassing and all that kind of stuff. But even possibly more important, and this gets into what we're talking about in this Culture Corner segment, is as we learned from 1984, and 1984 didn't even create it, this is all throughout human history. Usually when a society becomes tyrannical in its own right, set aside the whole government power structure, but when a society turns on itself and becomes tyrannical, one group of in the society versus another, they always go after the language first. And the word cisgender means nothing. You're either male or female. That is the way of nature's, simplistic grand design, is the binary of male and female come together to create offspring, and that's how you propagate the species. So to say that you are identifying with the sex characteristics that you were born with and therefore given this social construct of a gender is saying nothing. A male identifying as a male is just a male. Thank you for playing. And same thing for females. So the word cisgender has no meaning other than the meaning that was made up to create the term in the first place.
But you speaking all that logic would be hate speech.
Yes, of course. I would be canceled automatically. And so what is being done here is a group that refuses to abide by reality, right? The gender, the sex binary that is basic biology. They refuse to abide by that reality and want to create their own fiction that they demand that everybody else abide by that fiction. And so, since that fiction does not conform to reality, what do you have to do? You create a brand new reality with new language, with new meaningless words that feed into the fiction that create a certain sense of legitimacy, academic legitimacy at least, because, there's plenty of disciplines, underwater basket weaving type disciplines that take the word cisgender very seriously. And they write very long, important papers that you should read to inform yourself.
About to end a month that we have to educate ourselves on all these things. Pride Month. We have to, shove it down everyone's throats. It has to be in Target. It has pun unintended, but it has to be in Target. It has to be on Bud Light. It has to be on North Face. It has to be on everything because we have to let them in. It's like,
right.
Let them into what? Well, like we said on the last podcast, it's like, you guys are more than welcome to do whatever the hell you want to. But when you're welcome, don't change the name of the game that we've been playing for how long has humanity been on this planet?
I don't know. I think estimates are 300,000 years.
Okay.
Something like that. 250.
That's got to count for something.
It's a few days.
We must have figured something out.
It's a few suns and moons
to make it this far. But now you've got to figure it out more. So I can't wait to land on the moon with you.
So they create language that adds legitimacy, a thin veneer, a fake facade of legitimacy to their fiction. And then when you come along and object to it and say, I don't think that's a real thing, or worse, I think that thing that you made up, you're just using to, toss me out of the conversation or slur me or whatever the case may be, because you don't like that I'm standing here on solid footing saying reality is what it is. It doesn't matter what you want to, what fiction you want to play with yourself. So by doing that, it is gaslighting to the nth degree, because they create up a word, they make up a word that has no meaning. Then when you object to that word, then they get a label you a bigot and this, that, and whatever, and run you completely out of polite society. That's how this works. That's how the bastardization of language works in order to kowtow an entire swath of the society or of the culture that is perfectly well-intentioned and well-meaning. And it's just like, I don't think that, reality shifted just because you made up some new words and said so. And those people are now, it's like that meme with the person who's like standing here in the middle, and then the person on the left runs way over here, And he's like, "You're a crazy fascist." And the guy didn't move at all. They just moved the what's considered normal so far to the left that the person seems on the right by comparison.
What happened to moderate conservatives over the past 10 years?
Right. That's how they do it. They do it with language first.
Or liberals, to be honest, like more centrist.
So Elon calling that out was the big ticket item for this week, but it didn't stop with cisgender. We have a tweet here that nameless, faceless guy is putting up from Men's Health Mag that says, if you are attracted to women or femininity, it might be the label for you. And then you scroll down a little bit and it says, the title of the article at menshealth.com says, attracted to women, you might be gynosexual. Again, another made-up term that doesn't mean anything. You either have males that are attracted to women, in which case they are straight, or whatever term that we've been using forever to return to normal male-female relationships, or you have women that are attracted to women, in which case you have homosexual, lesbian, attraction, whatever. Gynosexual means nothing.
I don't
feel
any
different. It's a meaningless term that is made up to obfuscate things that we've known for a long time.
Well, I mean, they should really consult these marketing companies, because if you're attracted to women and that's becoming a naughty thing, that's going to turn
only
marketing.
If you're male.
That's going to turn marketing into a huge fucking problem nowadays, because don't we use sex and sexuality to sell most products nowadays?
Not if Miller Lite has anything to say about it.
Well, not if Bud Light has anything to say about it. Oh, wait, they totally did. They just got the goddamn thing wrong. Like, it's the Gillette thing all over again. It's like you're getting so caught up in the moment that you're forgetting what happened. Like, the whole thing that makes this whole thing work is that we are here to propagate our species and become more and more. It's like they're trying to stop us or make us feel bad for engaging in coitus nowadays. It's like they're trying to make less humans. It's like they're trying to make you feel bad for being you, which isn't that the whole point of what the LGBTQ does? Like, we're supposed to make them feel human, but all the rhetoric ever seems to do is make the normal people, and I'm going to say normal because male, female, heterosexuality, that's the natural thing.
I mean, and just by a numbers game, if we're going like, what is the majority of the population? We have, a population in the single digit percentages kowtowing the 90+% of people.
But it's an interesting psychological experiment, because they're saying we can't make them feel bad for feeling their feelings. Meanwhile, they're taking their apparatus, the media or whatever you want to call it, and turning it against you and making you feel bad for feeling the feelings that you're feeling. So the same people that want you to abide by all of their rules won't give you the slightest amount of quarter for feeling the feelings that we've been feeling for 300,000 years, as you said, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And again, here's the obligatory, don't cancel us, bro, blah, blah, blah. We've said this on past episodes. We'll say it again, because we know that whole conversation that we just had for the last 10 or so minutes is going to be clipped up and chopped in every other way to make us look like, unsophisticated Philistines and all, just terrible people.
Racist, sexist.
Is again, if you are an adult, we have not the slightest care in the world what you want to call yourself, what sexual partners you want to engage with, how you want to live your life, whatever makes you happy, do your thing.
Dylan Mulvaney, you go, girl.
Nothing but support for you. 2 criteria. First of all, leave the kids out of it. Second of all, don't try to cancel, criminally prosecute, or put any sort of other coercion on people that refuse to see your world as you see it. Listen, you have a completely sympathetic ear in people that self-identify as libertarian, because almost every single thing we say from every single aspect of society is viewed as kookish, crazy, yada, yada, yada. So we live an entire existence of people refusing to see the world as we see it. So we understand in a very real sense that when you say, oh, well, you need to see the world through somebody else's eyes, we get it. Okay. And you're perfectly allowed to see the world however you want and identify however you want and live your life as a free individual on this planet. However, don't expect to or that you're going to throw someone like us in a cage because we refuse to abide by your fantasies or change, fundamentally alter our reality to match yours and expect us to take that line down. We're not going to do it. We're going to speak out against that and be like, well, no, reality is what it is. You can have your own reality, but you can't expect everybody else to live it with you. It's really that simple. There is no hatred. There is no bigotry. There is no animosity in that at all. It's a simple disagreement on what reality fundamentally is. Go live yours, and as long as you're a, perfectly, self-sustaining member of society, and you're not leeching off other people, and you're not having other people thrown in cages, do you, boo-boo? We got nothing but love for you. Go do your thing.
Other than that,
does that save us? Does that save us from the 10 minutes?
No,
not at all.
Dude,
that's the part that gets cut off.
Explain your way out of it. It's like it's the dad explaining to the kid why they're not stopping at McDonald's. It's because mom has food at home that she's slaved over a hot stove to make you all night long. I love McDonald's. No, but we're not getting McDonald's. You're still an asshole in your kid's eyes, and they're still gonna want blood. So sorry. We did it. We did our best. But now on to Epstein.
Yes.
And an accounting error.
That's it. It's just a $6.2 billion accounting error.
I fuck up my taxes. I go to jail. I say I didn't get a $652 check. And I get audited by the IRS and say, we need that $652 back. Our national government loses 650, how much was it? Six billion?
6.2 billion.
Oh, that's a lot more than $652. And they lost it where?
Several orders of magnitude more. Well, apparently they overestimated the value of weapons that it sent to Ukraine.
Huh.
Yeah.
And was that their personal funds that the Senate, House, judiciary branch, and Biden himself that may or may not have gotten his money from a questionable
out of their own pockets?
Out of their own pockets. They paid that.
No. Yeah, no.
So whose money was
pockets.
that again? Sounded like ours. You said taxpayer money?
Yeah. When I'm reminded, nameless, faceless guy will put it up here. I'm reminded of a quote from Thomas Sowell. I'm going to butcher it, but you'll see it here on the screen. And I'm sorry to the audio-only listeners that I'm butchering it. It's something to the effect of, you cannot imagine a dumber way to organize society than give a group of people the power to make all the decisions for which they don't pay the consequences. And that's exactly what this is. This is a bunch of politicians playing with your money, which they can then overestimate by $6.2 billion and say, whoopsie daisies, we enriched our military industrial complex buddies a little bit more. Oh, and by the way, armed a bunch of actual real life Nazis over in Ukraine to the tune of $6.2 billion more than we had estimated. Whoops. But if you have greater than a $600 transaction on Venmo, we just got another 87,000 IRS agents. We're going to come knocking at your door.
Lewis Black had a joke that he was going over one of the political scandals of the times, and he was going over the WMDs. It turned out that there were never ever any WMDs that Iraq had that forces into this war. He's like, if you fucked up as hard as these motherfuckers fucked up, you'd be gone. Like, your boss wouldn't even let you finish the day. You'd be out on the street with your shit in a cardboard box walking home in the rain. Like, but these guys, they get reelected. They keep getting more taxpayer money. And you know what they say? They spend it frivolously. We keep adding to the national debt. And every year they're saying, you know what? Sorry about last year, but the real problem was we just didn't have enough money. So this year we're going to rewrite the tax code. You're going to pay more money. So we have more money to figure out the problem of a spending problem that we have. We'll figure it out if you just give us more money. What does that sound like to you? Does that sound like a normal, rational person? Or does that sound like the rhetoric of an addict that's never gonna get clean? It's like, yeah, I know, baby. I'm gonna get it all fixed up. I just need one more hit. Just one more hit. One more hit. Just one more hit. And everything will be fine. Just one more hit.
Yeah. And, not to call back and say, well, we told you so again, but
where's my soundboard?
when the Russian invasion happened early last year, February or March, I forgot, I think it was February 2022. It was pretty soon after that, because this had been known for quite a while, that the Azov Battalion, the paramilitary group in Ukraine, had a lot of Nazi sympathies, and in fact was recruiting extremists, actual extremists, not the FBI, everybody in America who's just marginally right of center as an extremist, but actual extremists were being recruited to Ukraine to join the Azov Battalion, and it was like overnight. Putin invades, and this group of people, the Azov Battalion, is lauded all over mainstream media in the halls of Stanford and other top institutions. How great the Azov Battalion is, and aren't they fantastic for defending Ukrainian civilians and all that kind of stuff? And to whatever extent that any individual defends innocence, good for them for that particular act. But let's not sit here and pretend that this cartoonish version that the American regime wants you to believe is that us and all of our allies, in this case, Ukraine and the Azov Battalion, are uniquely good guys and angelic in every way possible. And the other side is all darkness and evil, motivated by mayhem and, just hatred for mankind. The world's not quite that cartoonish. And the other thing that I wanted to point out about
some
this,
aspects, but in some aspects it is, but others.
The other point I wanted to point out about that is just keep this in mind when you're frequenting social media of any kind, especially Twitter, and you have all of the mouth breathers over there that have Ukraine flags in their bio. Very often, the Venn diagram is a circle between that person who has that flag in their bio and is also the same that says white supremacy and neo-fascism and all of that kind of stuff is the biggest threat to America.
Or obviously says that Elon Musk is a white supremacist Nazi person for buying Twitter to do what, Dane? Oh, that's right. Secure free speech on social platforms. And then you're like, hey, no, but you didn't do that. You just took it over because you're a bad person. Not 5 minutes ago, you were saying he was fighting the global warming problem because he's making e-vehicles and he was a hero for you. It's like, you guys don't remember what you said 5 minutes ago. So how can you take any political stand on anything if you aren't actually behind it? Or option B, mouth breather explanation, is that you just say what they tell you to say. You don't think about these things any further than you actually just get told, and then you're like, oh, well, Elon's a bad guy. Oh, I'm going to walk out of here now and go raise my family, not educate myself any further than that. Meanwhile, I was just supporting a Nazi 2 seconds ago, but we stand with Ukraine. I put a Ukrainian flag. And by the way, how are those Ukrainian flags in everyone's bios? How are they helping out in the war? Are they fighting off injustices? Are they pushing back?
Listen, they're just fantastic because they let everybody else on Twitter know that your opinion is more important than valid because you hold all the right ones.
Oh,
that's what the flag now stands for. It has nothing to do with Ukraine. And on this topic, we have a news article from The Nation titled, "The Western Media is Whitewashing the Azov Battalion." Subtitle, "Before Russia invaded Ukraine, these fighters were neo-Nazis. They still are." Well, that's refreshing. Thank you. Because at the time that we probably mentioned this, I don't even know if we had 100 subscribers on this podcast at this time last year. We're growing by leaps and bounds. Thank you for all your support.
Keep spreading the word.
Our tiny little, corner of the world that was talking about this, we were conspiracy theorists. There's no such thing as a Nazi battalion in Ukraine. Do you realize how crazy that is? Zelensky himself is Jewish. How would he allow a Nazi battalion to exist in his country? That's just nonsense. You're probably an anti-Semite just for suggesting that. And again, fast forward a year and a half, now we have mainstream articles talking about, they were there and they always were there and they're still there. And even though they're fighting the Russians, that doesn't make them the good guys.
There's a phrase that comes to mind is politics makes strange bedfellows. So when you say, how could Zelensky be propagating Nazis? Well, because it might benefit him politically, socially, and financially. I don't know. We did just lose 6.2 billion. Is that what it is? Where did that go?
6.2 billion extra.
Extra. Just a little.
The number is
cream will always rise to the top. No pukesters on my left. Pukesters on my right.
The actual number that's gone to Ukraine, I've seen it's as high as 300 billion. I've seen 100 some billion.
Jesus.
Who knows where the number is? When you're getting into these numbers, and when you're talking about a federal government in the United States government that in the last couple of years I think has spent close to $6 trillion a year. Yeah, that's a $2 trillion deficit for each of the last 2 years. You're getting into billions. Like that's like talking dollars and cents with a multimillionaire. It's peanuts.
We're trying to control guns here. But in a Nazi populist country.
To send them over to real Nazis.
And in a war zone, we can't track how many weapons have gone over there yet.
This is the infinite wisdom of your wise overlords that know how to live your life better than you do.
Go get the...
This is how they operate.
I almost said the no word. Go get your fifth one. New season's coming. New rendition.
And to tie all of this off, some of our favorite people in the whole world, major financial institutions, BlackRock and JP Morgan have set up a quote reconstruction bank for Ukraine to be able to rebuild the country.
Out of the goodness of their hearts, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And this is an age-old tactic. We've covered this on the podcast before too. This is an age-old tactic that the U.S. regime, or in this case, their right-hand man and women, or if you listen to the James O'Keefe episode, the people that are really pulling the strings in government, you extend credit to a country that you either help destroy or let get destroyed, and then you financially enslave that country until you decide not to.
You put a little interest on it. That they're not going to be able to pay.
By making their citizens, pay that back at a premium.
Yeah. Isn't that fun? Isn't that a fun thing that we do out of the goodness of our hearts?
Well, see, and I want to disabuse you of that notion in particular. And not that you did this on purpose or anything, but a lot of people do this. And I think it slips by them when they say it. And so I just want to bring it to everybody's attention so that they're more cognizant of it. What we have to do is we have to stop referring to anything that these people, meaning the government, people in BlackRock, JP Morgan, et cetera, we have to stop World Economic Forum. We have to stop using the term we, because you and I, regardless of all of their bullshit to say like, oh, democracy, you get a say in this whole thing. And, we've roundly destroyed that many times over on this podcast. I hold no personal responsibility for the crimes of these sociopaths. None whatsoever. Because not only do they do it against my will and over my protestations, they will do it by forcibly stealing money from me in order to fund it. Again, over my objections to the same. So, and I feel like a lot of people, especially on the political right in this country, is they too often look at the government as one and the same with the people. No. And everybody's just got to get that Schoolhouse Rock version of government out of their heads and realize that we are paying 30% of our paycheck to psychopaths.
You are not your government.
Yes. We're not responsible for the things that they do. We do not co-sign the things that they do. And the sooner we, break ourselves away from that sort of mental slavery in a way of seeing ourselves as one and the same with what our government or what our overlords do, that's how we begin to change the culture to to use our strength in numbers to say, we don't know. You're not doing this on our behalf and in our name anymore. And you're certainly not stealing from us to do it.
I will say, though, if you've got a Ukrainian flag on your car in your bio somewhere, you're not helping. You're not guilty,
Yeah,
but you're not fucking helping. Okay, I'm not going to hold you accountable for losing the 6.2, obviously, and I'm not going to hold you accountable for feeling good that, did you say BlackRock and JP Morgan?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Those are two really upstanding organizations that they're opening an account for the Ukraine out of the goodness of their hearts. I kind of hold you responsible for thinking that those huge conglomerates actually have a heart and are doing that out of the goodness of that said heart that you believe that they have. I hold you a little bit responsible, not for the whole thing, but like, stop fucking up, figure it out.
Yeah, at some point, the ignorance is chosen, right? Being willfully ignorant is almost as bad as engaging in it firsthand. Because you have, again, we say this all the time, in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. You know, the internet is a blessing and a curse. The blessing side of it is you have access to all of the information you could ever need to be as informed of a citizen as you could possibly be. So if you cannot be bothered to take 5 seconds to search for, forget, going down the rabbit hole, just a counterpoint to whatever the mainstream establishment narrative is that's being shoved down your throat and you just mindlessly regurgitate. If you can't even take 5 seconds out of your day to say, well, listen, I understand this is what Anderson Cooper wants me to think about topic X, Y, or Z, but I'm just, for the purposes of self-edification, I'm going to go and find somebody who disagrees with Anderson Cooper and just see what they have to say. Maybe I'll still at the end of that say, yep, that Anderson Cooper is a real sharp guy and he had it right the first time. And I am now going to voluntarily make the choice to say what Anderson Cooper said because I think it's true and correct. Fine, so be it. At least you engage in the critical thinking aspect. That's a bare minimum that we're asking of anybody that stumbles across this podcast, because we know that, our longtime listeners and subscribers are already the ones doing that. But you have access to the information. You don't have to just mindly regurgitate whatever the mainstream media tells you to think or say on a subject.
If you
do better for yourself and by proxy for the rest of us.
Direct them to this podcast. We'll help them out.
Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff.
Spread it like the herpes virus. Let us
the gift that keeps on giving.
Let us be the love bumps of your political social media intake. I don't know. I just wanted to kind of make us a virus that spreads like, the 19. Anywho, so all that being said,
speaking of mindlessly regurgitating talking points, we have the main episode today. And boy, has this one taken social media by storm. And the mainstream media.
I will say.
What we're talking about is the pending but never going to happen, for reasons we're going to discuss in this segment, open offer for a debate. I think 3 million is the highest number I've seen so far.
I saw it at 1.5 on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So it's grown.
But basically what happened was, it was either last week or the week before, Joe Rogan had on RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., son of Bobby. And RFK Jr., even before his now presidential campaign, has been an advocate of, shall I say, informed consent surrounding vaccines. Because again, mindless regurgitated talking point is RFK is an anti-vaxxer and he wants people to die because he wants everybody to get infected with smallpox. He is an attorney and he has spent a long career suing, in addition to other manufacturers of chemicals and products that have harmed people, particularly pharmaceutical companies that have injured people with vaccines. And a large portion of his legal practice has been basically going through hashtag the science and saying like either A, this claim that you're making about this product, again, sometimes vaccines, sometimes not, but the product the claim that you're making is either not supported by the actual research, or you're obfuscating the facts such that you're not giving people proper notice in order to make informed consent, or, that these multi-billion-dollar companies should be held financially liable for some of the harms that they've caused. Now, regardless of what you think about him as a man, or what you think about those opinions, the point is that he's not some fly-by-night, just watched a couple Joe Rogan episodes himself and now thinks that he's an expert on vaccine science. Like, attorneys are not the experts always in the fields that they litigate in, but as a consequence of litigating in those fields, they are constantly talking with and learning from experts so that they can use the vernacular when they're building their case against whoever they're happening to sue. So yeah, they're not experts in the sense that RFK doesn't have a PhD in epidemiology. However, when you go through that process, you read all of the studies and you talk to experts that deviate from the established prevailing opinion, and you try to get more of a complete picture of whatever the topic is. So this idea that they're trying to put out there that RFK is not worthy of a debate because he's some anti-science, anti-vax kook, which again, on that last part, he has stated repeatedly, he's not anti-vaccine. His point is that if a vaccine causes injury, the ones that should be responsible for that should not be the vaccine injured to just deal with it. It should be the multi-billion-dollar corporation that shamelessly and sometimes intentionally harm people by withholding information. And last I checked, if you were on the political left, isn't that your whole shtick? Is that evil big corporations that are driven by profits and just who cares about the carnage they leave behind, that they should be held responsible?
They can't be.
Isn't that your
get
whole
out from under
thing?
taxes?
So why does that go away when we start talking about Pfizer or Moderna and Purdue Pharma, these companies that, as we've talked about, have multi-billion-dollar settlements against them repeatedly for injuring people with their products? I don't understand, other than just being a tribalistic, mental marginal, where you're only capable of repeating your canned lines that are given to you by the mainstream media, how you could possibly reconcile those two things in your mind, that corporations are evil profit motive, endeavors, and that some of the richest corporations in the world have complete exemption from liability and are just doing what's in the best interest of everybody's public health. I don't know how you reconcile those in your mind. That's something for you to have a conversation with yourself in the mirror. But to go out of your way to attack somebody like RFK over and impugn his motives is kind of fucked up.
Okay, so you've said your piece.
Yes. Go get him, David.
I don't have anything getless. No, all I'm saying is that they're coming out that he's a conspiracy theorist. He's this, that, and the other. Okay, so I'm gonna steel man their argument, I think, and say, yeah, maybe he is, but of everybody in this country, he might have the best reason to be a conspiracy theorist, seeing as his father was assassinated and his uncle was assassinated on live television, probably by the CIA, probably to make a statement. Yeah, I would start fucking really being a conspiracy theorist. I'd start really not trusting my government with whatever the hell they said and just accepting whatever, or what was it called? Not the Phalanx, but what was it called last? It was a Chiron. Ooh, I got it. I had it right here. Chiron. Whatever Chiron CNN puts out this week. So yeah, obviously he's going to have his own perspective, and with good history, kind of like two co-hosts that you might be listening to right now. I don't know. Also, to the effect of whether or not he's a conspiracy theorist or vaccine hesitant, like you said, he's tried multiple cases against people, and something weird happened in 2020. We all knew that Pfizer had paid off multiple legislative or not legislative, but legality problems that they knew, knowingly and wantingly put out a product that they knew was going to hurt people. They paid billions of dollars. Johnson & Johnson isn't removed from that. They've done that too. If you've ever seen have you ever used talcum powder? You may be liable for compensation. Like, they're guilty of that shit. So is, Moderna, and especially Purdue Pharma. Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family came out and said heroin isn't addictive. Oh, I'm sorry. They said opium isn't addictive. And they put it in pills. And you know what they did? They followed the research. The research that they paid for, and got 2 studies that they paid that place to get that study that said just the right thing, that their product wasn't going to be addictive, even though we all know opium and opiates are the most addictive thing in the path of least resistance to death of oneself via drug. They used that, lots of money, knowing that they're going to hurt a lot of people. And what happened when, they said the pill crisis, the opium crisis was one thing. How many deaths? How many deaths in the opium crisis? Millions, if not closer to billions? Because they don't count the ones that died of heroin. They count the ones that died of overdose of that pill. But I digress. All the Sackler family had to do was pay $8 billion, which would probably be a small pittance of what they actually earned during that time. And now they're no longer liable for injury from their product. Doesn't that sound like something familiar to us? Something that didn't have that was blacked out for 70 years until people started coming out and saying other things. All I'm saying is that people implicitly trusted these companies that have directly hurt people for profit for years on end. And then all of a sudden, some weird thing happened in 2020. I'm not going to say it out loud so we don't get this video removed. But then everything went to, we have to trust these companies that have hurt us for 30 years, if not plus. But they only have now our best interests in mind. That they definitely won't try to take advantage of the situation and definitely won't make record profits off of a thing that they came up with for your best interest that definitely won't hurt you ever. But if it does, it's not their fault.
Now, here's where this whole thing started. Within the last week or so, Joe had RFK Jr. on, and he talked, at least in part. This wasn't all that he talked about. He also talked about his presidential campaign, et cetera, et cetera. But he talked about the damage that can be done by pharmaceutical companies that are left to run amok and then exempted from liability for their products by the government. And that riled some of the more what I call the C-word cultists, C-word as in the last couple of years, because don't you know you're not supposed to question their Lord and Savior Pfizer and Moderna. But anyway, Vice then published an article titled, "Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's vaccine misinformation." Subtitle, "As a recent conversation between the podcast host and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. makes clear." Now, this article, this is where the whole social media storm really exploded. This article was shared approvingly by a Dr. Peter Hotez. Now, I had no idea who Peter Hotez was before all this because, I, like many sane people, did not consume very much mainstream media throughout the last couple of years for very good reasons. But apparently, as is evident by several videos that I've seen of Peter Hotez's comments on places like MSNBC, CNN, ABC, etc., Peter Hotez was one of the go-to pushers of all things C-word jab related.
So he would have no interest in protecting his ass or of the people that protected him.
Of course.
He has no motives in
unless,
this.
of course, he wanted to apologize for all of the disinformation that he spread for the last couple of years.
You mean like Rachel Maddow's come out and apologized, right, and MSNBC's been...
Exactly. So Peter Hotez, who, by the way, again, unbeknownst to me, I don't know when, but at some point in the not too distant past, has been on the Joe Rogan Experience himself. So he sat face to face with the man, and he knows, presumably, that Joe is, if nothing else, a straight shooter who just asks questions. And
a gracious host, by the way.
But Hotez shared this Vice article approvingly, which was filled with complete non sequiturs and bullshit and just a complete smear against both RFK Jr. and Joe Rogan, hearkening back to when they tried to cancel Joe during the C-word times for having, actual experts like Dr. Robert Malone or Peter McCullough
to make him look sicker. They darkened it up, for Christ's sake.
So Peter Hotez shares this Vice article seriously. So then Joe responds, hey man, that was a bullshit article. So what I want to do is I want to give you the opportunity to come back on my podcast, you and RFK Jr., and you guys can have a long form debate about these topics. And boy, did that really set some hair on fire. And did that get the mainstream media mouthpiece circus just firing on all four cylinders. I mean, everything from the New York Times, every TV media obviously ran with it, but the New York Times, the LA Times, the Washington Post, you name it. There is not a mainstream media source who for the last 10-ish days since this all happened, that has not run an article similar to this title. This is one of the more offensive ones from the LA Times that says, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a threat to your health and our democracy.
Oh, there it is. There it is. A threat to our democracy. Just like Trump in January 6th. And oh my God, that's the new Nazi.
I want to hone in on that threat to the democracy thing, because again, the Twitter blue checks, the legacy blue checks, not the ones since Elon, but the ones that were so self-important, they had their blue checks ahead of time, have been wailing and gnashing their teeth about this. And I kept thinking, a threat to our democracy. Now, what is democracy, at least in these people's conception? Well, it's the institutionalization of might makes right. If you have 50.00001% that says I want to do X and the other 49.999% says I want to do Y, well, too damn bad, 49.999%. That other side gets to impose its will on you no matter what, and that's democracy, and you better love it and don't ask any questions, or else you're a threat to it and you're probably a domestic terrorist.
And by the way, is this coming from the side that has a presidential candidate that might be compromised in the White House right now?
Here is especially egregious about that. I have a Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Have no idea who this guy is.
Talib or Taleb?
Don't give a fuck.
Okay.
But he is a Twitter blue check, and what he has tweeted here, what I'm getting ready to read you, really encapsulates that all of these people's rhetoric is complete and utter bullshit, and you can safely wipe your ass with it. Just don't cut yourself. Okay, he had this tweet to say, the central problem with any such debate involving a real scientist is that Joe Rogan's audience is so dumb and so statistically unsophisticated that they will never figure out who won the argument. And then he tweets to his own tweet. As the replies by Rogan viewers show, the typical defender of these conspiracies and pseudo-libertarian pea-brain fails to understand the passage of time, that there are some measures you take when you don't know what's going on. As I said, #idiots. Now, again, this is just one glue-eating blue check. So I'm not going to say that he speaks for the 150 million people that agree with him. However, I will say that I will bet you he is one of these, got to save our democracy's sacred, Trump's a threat to it, RFK Jr. is a threat to it, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Last time I checked, Joe gets north of what? 12, 13 million viewers?
11 million downloads usually.
Okay. 11 million per episode. Okay. What does CNN get in their primetime slot? A few 100,000. Now, Nassim, if this whole might makes right thing and the most people having one opinion versus another is what makes everything morally justified in your opinion, I would say that just on the sheer numbers of the thing, castigating an audience 11 million strong just because they want to hear a long-form debate on Joe Rogan's podcast when you're going to say that Anderson Cooper is the example of everything light in the world with his 150,000 viewers on primetime TV with a multi-million-dollar production, crew behind him, is it seems to be a little bit incongruous with your idea that if enough people vote for X, then they should get to do and tell Y whatever they want to do. That doesn't seem to me like you really give a shit about democracy. You're just another one of those people that, yeah, we like democracy as long as the majority says what we tell them to do. But democracy is, what did he say? And the audience is so stupid and statistically unsophisticated. So yeah, if the great unwashed masses have the temerity to make you stand and defend your positions in a public forum, then they're stupid and we can just safely dismiss all of them. That tells you exactly the way these people will operate if they ever get complete and unfettered power.
By the way,
they don't give a shit about democracy. And the second you try to say anything against them, get in front of the trench. That's the way these people think. They don't have to say it explicitly. We see right through the paper-thin veneer of all of their bullshit.
By the way, was Joe Rogan the only one to offer money to this man to come on the largest podcast in the world, and debate RFK? Was he the only one that threw money into that pot?
No, I don't know who all did. I know it was a piecemeal thing. The one I explicitly saw was, I think, Tim Pool offered up $100K.
And Elon Musk also offered up money. I think Elon's pretty fucking smart. I know, I'm sure the guy that wrote that tweet, or was it a tweet?
Yeah, it was a tweet.
Of course, because he's verified. He paid Elon for that little check mark that meant so much to him. Because he's so educated and statistically educated.
By the way, nameless, faceless guy is putting up a meme right here that shows you how smart this guy is. For the audio only listeners, it's a picture of Taleb. He took of himself on a plane. He says, "On planes, I wear 2 masks plus goggles plus N95 when there is a crowd." It's him sitting on a plane with literally 2 masks and goggles,
and everyone else is just
that's the bright.
He's the
genius.
motherfucker that drives 10 and 2. With a mask on in his car by himself, not Ubering. That's that motherfucker. He never came back.
Yeah.
So he's so educated.
Yeah. That's the bright genius who is so much more statistically sophisticated than you are.
Oh, fuck. I need to win his approval.
Yeah, I know. Don't we all?
So all I'll say is my whole piece it'll be very succinct after I've said it, is just stoicism. Whenever somebody comes out and calls you uneducated, don't react. Whenever somebody comes out and says, "Oh, well, you just don't know," don't react. Let them come. Let them talk themselves into a tizzy. And then when you're right, they won't admit that they were ever wrong. So what's the point of arguing with them? All an idiot will do is drag you down to their level and beat you with experience with these stupid fucking arguments. Joe Rogan's 11 million followers are of all ilk, of all educations, of all backgrounds, socioeconomic, probably sexually. There might be some members of LGBTQ mixed up in there because there's hunters. There's people that like science. They'll listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson's been on there. Michio Kaku's been on there. He can hold a conversation with them. That's a very intelligent podcast when it wants to be. And it's a very dumb podcast when it wants to be, but it's what the people want. Which makes Joe Rogan, I don't know, somewhat smart, right? To build the biggest podcast that's ever existed, that's got to amount to something, some level of smarts or education or something. Something's got to be giving. If he didn't do any of the promotion and isn't getting supplanted by government funds to keep his program alive, unlike some of the legacy media things that are only bringing in 150,000, 200,000 viewers at prime time. I don't know. If more people choose Jif, I'm going to choose Jif over fucking Peter Pan. Especially if it's a choosy mom. But anyway, that's my piece. Just stoicism. Don't let because what they always go down to is what we've talked about before, is the uneducated, unexperienced, you're a dummy, you're a Nazi. That's when they don't have anything else, that's what they go to. They can't stand on their education, even though they'll tell you they're more educated than you.
Of course. And that gets, on the quote unquote having allegedly more education or being more of an expert. That gets to the second part. So the first part is they don't actually give a shit about democracy. And this is just the latest example proving that to you. The second part is that these people are so, I know many of you are familiar with the difference between book smarts and street smarts. And these people might be able to, regurgitate facts and figures on an exam all the way up to getting their, master's degree or PhD. And so they really think very highly of themselves because they're able to do that. Never mind the fact that very often doesn't require critical thinking of any shape or form, which is actual a sign of true intelligence, the ability to examine facts and take things into account that might make one change one's mind. That's not the way these people operate. And here's another example. We have a Tom Nichols who, I looked into Tom a little bit after I saw some of his tweets, and he, is a retired professor from the U.S. Naval War College, and at one point in his career was a former CIA consultant. So this is pretty par for the course as far as far as somebody goes with Tom Nichols. So this was the prevailing opinion out there for the cult of the experts on social media. And Tom had this to say, quote, "No medical professional should ever agree to do this." He's talking about to the debate that was offered to Hotez. Quote, "Never. It elevates the conspiracy guy, demeans the medical professional, and will only convince the kooks out there that RFK is right because a real doctor took the time to debate him. Never debate a conspiracy theorist." And it's funny because Nichols has also shamelessly taken this tact to push his book that he wrote a year or so ago called The Death of Expertise, the campaign against established knowledge and why it matters. Because Nichols, don't you know, he's a foreign policy expert, having worked at the U.S. Naval War College. And so, and he really specializes in Russia. So when Nichols says that Russia was completely unprovoked and the U.S. war machine is completely staffed by angels and would never have done anything that would make the Ukraine-Russia situation happen, you better listen to Tom Nichols, because he is the exact kind of expert in his field that he wants you to think of Hotez that is above debate in the vaccine field. So that's Nichols' whole modus operandi. But I want to pick that tweet apart just a little bit. No medical professional should ever agree to do this. Never. It elevates the conspiracy guy. How, Tom? How? If you and I were to sit down and have a debate on Russia, Ukraine, where you're an expert, and I say, "Hey, Tom, here's this example. Look at Henry Kissinger. You know, that great statesman of the American foreign policy establishment who said back in the 90s, after the end of the Cold War, that said, it's probably not in America's national interest to push Russia closer to China because it would be better to keep them separated and kind of friendly to us rather than have them aligned against us." Now, if I point to that statement from the vaunted, much more expert than you as a longtime Secretary of State, if I point to that statement by Henry Kissinger and say, "Look, Kissinger, as an expert, a more touted expert than you, was warning about the United States pushing Russia and that something like what eventually happened might happen," what would you have to say to that, Tom? Would that elevate my conspiracy theories? Because I'm appealing to experts on your side of the ledger who just happens to disagree with you. But see, if we don't have that debate, Tom, then it's not that my conspiracy theories are not elevated. You just look like the fucking coward that you are. Because for all of the expertise that you allegedly hold, you can't have a conversation for 5 minutes to support and defend your position? Would you not have the debate with Henry Kissinger? I suggest you would. Well, maybe you wouldn't, because if you're afraid of little old me that doesn't have all of that expertise, you would definitely be afraid of him. So first thing, right out the window, it doesn't elevate the conspiracy guy to have a conversation with an expert. Whoever's right, the facts will come out on their side. Second thing, it demeans the medical professional. Again, how? How would Hotez be demeaned by confronting a conspiracy theorist and saying, "You claimed X. Here's conclusively why X is wrong"? How is that demeaning in any way, shape, or form? Again, it doesn't matter if RFK is completely turned off to the facts and won't have his mind changed or whatever. Some of the 11 million that tuned into the episode might, and isn't that what you're trying to do? Aren't you trying to sway the unwashed masses to support you? And finally, it will only convince the kooks out there that RFK is right because a real doctor took this. No, nobody goes into a debate and says,
if the doctor eviscerates RFK, you won, and you just won 11 million fucking followers. If you don't, this is the argument of somebody that doesn't believe what they're actually saying. That's really what this is. Which, Dane, I'm going to say a fucking sentence right now.
say many of them.
I never, ever expected to say, but I'm about to say it. This makes me respect the U.S. women's national team trifold more than I ever will respect this motherfucker.
Oh, I want to hear
Dr.
this.
Peter Hotez.
I think I speak for all of the WMD memes in the sane space when I say I want to hear this.
Oh, rest easy, baby birds. I'm going to feed you. So with all this rhetoric about women doing the same job and getting less pay, and they knew it was bullshit. And maybe they did. Okay, maybe they didn't. Whatever. But at least they were willing to put it on the line. They played a U16 men's team and lost. But they played them. And then they just most recently they played a retiree
bunch of old fogies from Wrexham,
second league professional soccer players, and lost
12
by mercy rule 40 minutes into the game. That being said, at least they had the balls, not technically, but you know, the balls to walk out onto the field and try to prove their case. They were stuffed multiple times and nobody gave a fuck about it. And they're still going to keep collecting all the other shit that we've been giving them for equal pay. Anyway.
David, you've won me over.
All that being said, I respect them 10 times more than Dr. Peter Hotez or whoever that dumb motherfucker was that won't have a
Tom Nichols, Nassim Nicholas Taleb.
Like you guys are cowards. You're cowards. Okay. Here the whole thing summed up that David just said in one sentence. The US women's national team has more balls than Peter Hotez and Nichols and one more time Nassim. There you go.
Combined.
Give them a tug. Make sure they're still attached. They probably aren't because you're just mouthpieces for, I don't know, the absolute totalitarianism of what our government's trying to do right now. I don't know.
And I mean, how completely lacking in self-awareness do you have to be to make this type of argument and think that anybody that doesn't already, occupy your echo chamber believe you? I mean, this is not even kindergarten level argumentation here. And you guys are the experts? And here's the other thing about the whole quote unquote cult of the experts is this exact problem that you are running in absolute fear from. The idea that 11 million people would tune in to a long form debate and maybe come away from that debate thinking that your expert was proven wrong definitively. That thing that you're afraid of, you people caused. Because I'll bet you that the vast majority of the Joe Rogan listeners and viewers, et cetera, are your everyday crack open a Bud Light. Well, not anymore, but your everyday common man in the United States that wasn't too politically tuned in, didn't really care. They just wanted to wake up and go to work and make their paycheck and take care of their family and put their head down at night and be happy with the roof over their head and the food on their table. That's what the vast majority of Americans are. And I would probably venture to say people in the world. They just want to do their daily duties, take care of the ones that they love, keep them safe, protect them, and just make it to the next day. But you know what? All those people in 2019, I'll bet you if you ask the vast majority of them, what do you think about the expert opinion on X, Y, or Z? I'll bet you the vast majority in 2019 would have said, yeah, we should probably trust the experts. They study it a lot and, this is their whole career and yada, yada, yada. But you know what? A lot of those people aren't thinking like that in 2023. And you don't have RFK Jr. and Joe Rogan or this podcast or anybody else that dissents from your cult of expertise to blame for that. You have nobody but yourself. You have nobody but Hotez himself, who repeatedly, and we're going to put a link to a 6-minute video of like all of his little, when he said, it's going to stop transmission, and then you only need one, and then a second booster is going to be enough. And then when the third booster is required, he said, well, I always knew this was going to be a 3-shot thing. Oh, well, maybe you should get the fourth one. You should probably get the fifth, the third booster, the fifth shot. This was Hotez all throughout the time. He just constantly in flux, right? Those experts throughout that time, you have created the backlash against your cult. You, because you constantly changed whenever it was convenient for you, and then you wanted to cancel, dismiss, or in this case, refuse to debate anybody who dissented from you.
And how democratic
all throughout
is that?
the whole time.
And how democratic
That's why
is
nobody trusts you. What you're running from in fear, you created, and you're making it stronger by the day. So keep it up. Actually, at the end of this segment, I am now going to retract my whole viewpoint on this thing, and I'm going to applaud you. I'm glad that you're out there talking like this and doing this, because I've never trusted you, and many of us haven't. But for the common man that wasn't paying attention for the longest time, they're coming closer and closer to my side, and I don't even have to say a word. All you have to do is be you.
Stoic.
So keep going for it.
Be stoic. Just be quiet, be confident. Just let them talk themselves into their own fucking rhetoric that consumes them eventually. Because here's the thing. I've noticed this a lot on the left, is that they're so concerned with keeping the people in their tribe happy that they don't care if they offend other people outside of the tribe. And eventually your tribe starts to shrink because you're not making any more of you. You're making less of you. And less people are following your shit, less people are trusting you. And guess what? What's that old idiom we have on this podcast? It's been said so many times, I think it's been on every podcast that we've had. It's that the door always swings back twice as hard. And they're getting fucking scared because they indicted Trump for obvious reasons because they don't want him to run. And they're not letting anybody on their side debate Biden, which is their front runner for presidency in 2024, I want to say. So, all that being said, is that your weenie is showing. It's hanging out of your fucking zipper, and you guys won't tell each other that because you're too scared to offend any of each other. That's the problem, is that you don't care to make any more of you. Well, if you don't make any more of you, you won't win the next election. What's your excuse going to be? That Trump, DeSantis, RFK, somebody was bought by Russia again? Who would buy them? And then, by the way, why the fuck would you care? Because the guy that you have in office, as I mentioned before, may or may not have been doing that, but there's a submarine that lost 5 people this week. So we had to focus on that.
Yeah.
To bring it all back. So again, I'm sorry if I've come off insensitive in some of these topics, but I mean, these guys are accountable for a lot of things, and they will be held account to literally as much as Hunter was this week, if you even heard what he was accountable for. And they'll get off scot-free and they won't be held accountable. So, oh well, they'll scuttle off. They'll have more than enough money for them and their family and their probably family's family for a long time. And we'll move forward and we'll have to pick up the pieces of what they've left behind. And that's really what democracy that they're trying to protect is going to be from here on out.
So in the meantime, you, listener and viewer, you just keep doing your thing. I know, again, the longtime listeners and viewers of this show, the self-select group that comprises the Sane Space already knows this, but to any new subscribers, listeners, viewers that we have here on episode 151 and moving forward, this is why self-sufficiency and self-reliance is so integral to freedom. They are inextricably intertwined because these people, these experts, want you to depend on them for your every need. Because once you're dependent upon them, well, then there's very little to stop them from them telling you to do whatever they want you to do. So the number one act of rebellion that all of us can do starting right now is to just be self-sufficient. Whatever that may mean for you. Whether that means saving a little bit more so you're not dependent upon that job that, your employer probably hates you because you aren't, the right diversity quota, or you don't hold the right opinions, or, the ability to grow your own food, or the ability to defend yourself, or any of these things that you can take into your own hands and don't have to rely on somebody else for. Every tiny little step, as imperceptible as each step may be in that direction towards complete self-sufficiency, is an act of rebellion. So if you're tired of these experts telling you what to do with your life and then refusing to defend their positions publicly, and instead of engaging as, a person in a civilized society would be, as they use persuasion to get people to their side, and they prefer to use coercion and force, well, if you don't need them, they can't force you to do anything. So that's the silver lining in this whole thing. That's the feel-good note to end this thing on is while you still can, while you still have breath in your lungs and you're still on your feet instead of your knees, you can take the steps necessary to make these people completely irrelevant. I mean, they already are, and they are definitely to the same space, but they're even more irrelevant to the degree that you make yourself more self-sufficient and self-reliant. That's the overarching message of this podcast is, as David says, stay safe and stay free. 95+% of that is in your hands. And that's hopeful because you don't got to rely on anybody else.
And speaking of subscribers and staying free and staying safe, where can they find this illustrious 151 episode of Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast?
They can find this episode at wmdpodcast.com/151. They can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. They can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. Please, 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 wherever you find us, if you have not already, and if you send any friends and family over, when you send any friends and family over, please tell them to like, subscribe, share the videos, get in the comment sections. Even if you just say, you guys are dumb and I hate you. All of those things help us in the algorithm. It helps bump us, helps to get us in front of more eyes and ears so that we can grow the sane space ever, ever larger. Because if nothing else, a community is what you want. A community to let you know that you're not alone. And having the thoughts that you have, that freedom and liberty are relatively important things.
They're not ideals, they're perspectives.
So please do that. Always remember to like, subscribe, share, and follow. But you can also link up with us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can get into the private members-only Facebook page at $5 a month or more of support. Just go to wmdpodcast.com, the Support Our Work tab, to see how to do that. Remember to join that automated text service at 610-596-WMDP, which is 610-596-9637 to get merch discounts and just stay in contact with the show. You can also link up with us on Tribel and Float. And I don't believe I forgot anything.
That's like a 2-minute rant.
Oh, by the way, also to really simplify all of that, any social media or anywhere you see us, whether it's on YouTube and in the comment section or in our Twitter bio, our Instagram bio, or whatever, we will have our link tree. It's just one link, and if you click on that,
one link to rule them all.
It is. It shows you every single website that we are on. So that's the quickest way to follow. Please follow us on all of them. If you got a free afternoon and you can click some links and hit some follow buttons, we'd appreciate that. Other than all that, the email list, wmdpodcast.com. On that homepage, click to
like a 3-minute rant.
Click to join in on the email list. We're really trying to cover all our bases. Okay.
I think you got that photographic memory.
We're putting a lot of lily pads out there in the pond because we never know,
where
which
all
one's going to
get frogs and frogettes are going to jump on,
We never know which one's going to get sucked out from underneath of us. So we want to hop to the next lily pad. So that's...
You can suck a lily pad?
Yeah. Have you ever seen an anaconda? Eat the frog.
But you eat the frog.
But we're jumping.
We're frog.
Like we're sitting on the lily pad.
You see a frog, but I'm crossing a highway.
We're sitting on the lily pad, and the evil Leviathan that is the cult of experts is trying to swallow us and cancel us from that lily pad. We hop to another lily pad.
And then we spray our little poisonous work things on it.
Yeah,
right?
we twerk while we do it too.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
you
how
can see
we
David
spread our
twerking, but
words.
he's twerking.
Anyway, with all this,
Yeah, I'm done. David's
with that 5-minute dissertation of wherever you could find us, which is, again, kudos to you for memorizing all of that. Most importantly, guys, stay safe and stay free.